All right, good morning, everybody. We'll get this meeting called to order. We have a change in the agenda, though. We have to delete off payroll approval for new hire veterans. Or that one down, right?
Yeah, it was due to a misunderstanding of Ipers. She had just retired at the end of June. She has to have 4 months between, so she only has one. So she
Yeah, where she loses.
Yeah, we have another individual on whom we're waiting to call.
Okay, we get that one on the next agenda. So we can delete off H off of 11.
I'll move to approve the agenda with that adjustment.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes of the July 8th, 26th board meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Set public hearing for August 25th at 9:30 a.m. Approval of final plat, Hill subdivision. All right, you got this, Randy. You have anything else to add to it?
No, I just need to set the public hearing for the 25th.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to set the public hearing.
And I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Recorder's black ice tip viewer renewal. It's just your normal thing, right?
I'll make a motion to approve.
And I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 35, 2026, overpayment of insurance premiums, Teamsters Local Union 238. When it's all done and ready to go.
Yep, I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
And I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Memorandum of understanding with Teamsters Local 238. 5-cent to 10-cent shift differential got left off and add that back in.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
And I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Data center discussion. I know the city's actively looking for a data center to come into their industrial park at the airport. I know Andy and I and Travis, Miranda, we all took a trip up to Waukee, almost at Milwaukee. And we took a tour of the U.S. Signal data center. It had more security than our jails. Very top notch, very secure, very fireproof, very quiet. They had 3 huge generators that were completely enclosed. They don't run them after 7 p.m. for the neighbors. They are right next to energy, of course. They also use basically antifreeze. They have a completely enclosed system that cools. They don't use very much outside water. And the antifreeze keeps everything cool. And they have suction vents over each individual locker, basically. Our information is stored in. And you can talk normal voice in the building and hear just fine within the enclosed building. They were adding on also there, but I thought that was a very nice center. And talking with Hans, I figured we already knew, but it was the cream of the crop as far as data centers. They are very near the top. They are very public oriented. They want to get along with the outside entity. So I know we are taking a second tour.
August 27th in Altoona.
August 27th in Altoona. And Carrie's going and Ren's going. We may see another couple department heads go with that also. And then we'll see if we can get one set up for a bad center for Brian. One of the bigger ones. Because this center we went to covered about 3.5 acres, I think. And it was actually there before Waukee was there. They'd been there for 13 years.
This is 2000, was it 9? I think they were put up. 2009 is when I built it. It was 5 acres.
They have 5 acres, but the facility was on 3.5, but they're expanding, so. Like I say, the town swallowed them up, but it is ussignal.com. And they do have videos on there of the whole center, just like we took through, that you can get on and watch. So that's my discussion. Anybody else have anything input?
I did a little bit of looking at that. Sorry. So I just kind of went on the Dallas County Beacon website and looked at what they had for everything there. Currently it's about a 19,000 square foot facility that they're adding on to, and I don't recall, were they doubling the size? Is that, yeah.
Yeah. With a different type of system.
Yeah, so the land valuation they have up there is roughly 1.6 million. And then on the building, it's 3.1 for a total of almost 4.8 million assessed value on that. For the 25-26 payable taxes, it was 3.9 million. And their levy rate's roughly $35 per thousand. So there was 140,104 in taxes that facility paid for the 25-26 payable year. So that, I just thought you might like that information.
Yeah, you just remind me of another thing that, when they told us they don't require tax abatements.
Yeah, there was,
They said they make enough money.
there was something a little funky in there, in one of the years where they only paid a couple $1,000 in taxes. And I don't know if that's a typo on there or if that's what actually happened, or I really don't know. I didn't call to ask about that, but there was one year in there that looked really weird online. But other than that, you're correct. There were didn't look like there were any tax abatements or anything on it.
Right?
Thank you, Travis. I had you trained. You answered my question. Yes.
I am pleased.
One of my thoughts on it is that we look at the Lynn County ordinance on data centers, and it's good. It's a good example. But then the one gap that I saw on it is there was no decommissioning language, and I think that's a huge topic to deal with in an ordinance. So just to throw that out there, it's something to consider. And then Miranda, have we talked to MSA at all about developing an ordinance? Has that been a discussion at all?
Not at this time. If that's a direction that the board wants to do, I can reach out and find out, or if it's something, that's kind of up to the three of you, if you want to spend the money on having them develop one, or if it's something as the board you want to work on as well.
And another option would be to just go to an attorney, but I guess the model that I'd like to proceed with would be the MSA do an ordinance and then an attorney looks at it. So we have two different groups looking at it.
Okay.
But do you have any idea what they would charge for an ordinance? And if not, maybe that's the next step, is just even ask them.
If we go, sorry. Just kind of, we spent roughly around 36,000 on the renewable energy ordinance. So I maybe look in that ballpark, and I can reach out to them as well if you'd like, as a board. I will say there are a number of counties that are working on an ordinance. They have, a lot of counties have set like a moratorium just to give them a little bit of time to work on a data center ordinance. I hope to have some of that discussion next week up at ISAC. I know that's kind of a hot topic in Iowa and other surrounding states as well. So
Yeah, and that's what that director up there said, make sure your ordinance is what you want. He said, because the companies will work around what you don't put.
So it should be complete.
Right, and it's just like them using antifreeze, he said you could put that in your ordinance, so if you don't wanna waste all your fresh water, they would have to follow in suit.
Right.
He said they will, but they will also go outside the lines, just like the ones that drill the wells in Cedar Rapids.
I guess it would be my opinion that we proceed with some investigation on who could do the ordinance and the cost. Because to me, there's no harm in doing that investigation at this point.
I can reach out to MSA if you'd like.
But certainly it's not just my decision if others.
They won't hurt nothing to get a cost.
Okay.
Darren, I had a question.
Yes,
So I know when I'd asked you guys before about data centers, you really needed to do a lot of information gathering because you really didn't know. Did this trip kind of change any perspective that you guys had, knowing what you said the city wants to get one developed? Because I mean, this was a good one. Who knows what the one in Altoona is going to be like in 2 weeks? I think it's a Microsoft one, if I remember right, a Microsoft data center.
It's an independent.
Oh, is it independent? Okay, sorry about that.
yeah, we haven't got into one of the big ones, like
Right.
Microsoft actually had to build their own water tower.
What did this visit to Waukee kind of show you about data centers, or at least initially?
If they were like that, I'd be nothing wrong with it. I mean, they were really outgoing. They had no problem sharing their information. It was, like I say, it was extremely clean, quiet. They were doing construction. You couldn't hear the construction.
Does anybody have a copy of their ordinance?
Waukee's?
Mm-hmm.
No, I do not yet, but I plan on getting it.
Get one.
I'll get it.
And I would hate to spend a bunch of money on somebody to write an ordinance when
We can
we
copy
have
paste.
all the information from all these other counties, we can do it ourselves. I would not be okay with spending $40,000 on another ordinance. If we can do it ourselves.
So I'd say, I talked to Hans, and he said that was one of the top ones. He's supposed to get with us after the state fair here. He said he's been to see them all, so. Tap his knowledge and see what he thinks, so.
Did you have a whole lot of knowledge about data centers going into this, or
Well, yeah, it's all on Facebook.
well, take that what you will, I guess.
Yeah, no. No, and they were very clear up there that there are multiple types of data centers. Now they stored information they could store your information if you wanted to store it there. It's a whole different deal than like Microsoft or Facebook, where they're storing their own stuff. And that's how they make their money, is they charge so much to keep your information there. So the one fact that I asked that really kind of shocked me was they're storing your information and their facility crashed, burned up, blew up. There's no backup to the backup. So
They do replicate to other centers. They got several different ones, depending on the level that you.
the level, yeah. If you paid enough,
Yeah, it'll
like I said,
replicate.
if you want to pay enough, we'll put it in other places. But I think that just that cage, what do you say, that cage is $1 million a year?
The big one that's locked up. Yeah, about that.
And it was only a third or a quarter full.
Mhm.
So how many people did they actually have working in the data center, not including construction?
5,
5.
not including the administrators that took us because they travel. They travel to all their different sites, and they're looking to add 12 to 18 more facilities. But they place theirs 100 to 200 miles from their clients. Unfortunately, they were pretty clear that down here is too far from their clients. But I do have the business manager's card up here if anybody wants to contact him, get his information. And also have like I said, the website. strongly encourage everybody to get on there and look, because it's a whole lot different than what you see on Facebook. Their fire retention system was all basically gas based because they run off lithium batteries. And the rooms are completely airlocked. If there was a fire, all the doors completely sealed. Big water tubes, we did comment that it was kind of like Willy Wonka, but they see it in those big water tubes. So. Any other questions?
Darren, they were actually too talking about their water usage and how they were actually gonna go down to about 0 because they're changing their cooling system over to with the expansion over to all air driven cooling. So the usage that they have on the water right now is actually gonna drop. But like he said, the Microsoft one had built their own water tower to have enough water for them. So they're not all like that, but
You said the ones that are solely water fan cooled are extremely loud. There's what's this? Because they have a cooling system inside, and that's where the big tube board all goes recycles back through. And he said they never change their antifreeze; it'll stay there forever. They just have a clean system that cleans it, so just reuse it. And it was 35% glycol. Was that? Remember?
that might
It wasn't
right.
wasn't a 50-50 mixture like you had in the car, but I think it was 35. So. Any other question? We'll move on until we can hear from the next report. Okay, renewable energy ordinance discussion. I threw this back on, so hopefully we just have some public hearings on it, get some public input, and so we can move on out of that into the data. I just kind of talked briefly with Brian this morning about it, so what do you think, Brian?
And I have no problem with doing a public hearing. That's always smart to do to get public input. I guess the issue is we made some progress on coming together on several things, but there's several issues that we probably are not there yet. It would be appropriate, I think, to have.
Yeah, those are the ones you were going to email me on after the meeting, but I got nothing.
And vice versa, we could have both done that, but I'd rather, work through Miranda on some of this so that she collects the information for us. So we certainly could have another discussion, and I can email you some things that I have that is not resolved.
Okay, well, let's do that. Let's get it. Then we can put it back on in 2 weeks. And
Okay.
get your stuff to me.
My suggestion was, why don't we, if we could use Miranda as the way.
Well, we're supposed to copy Travis and Miranda and Don
Yeah.
in on
Yeah.
email anyway. So
Yeah. I'm a little sensitive to open meeting law in terms of corresponding like that. So we use Miranda, that helps that.
well, it should be no violation. Send that to Travis and Don because they were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's what I can do.
And then they can forward it on to me. So
Yes.
okay. Any other discussion? Acceptance of health insurance and transplant renewal. Next hour is yours.
Think anybody wants to be talk for an hour. Okay, so the county is basically self-insured, and in that we purchased a stop loss agreement as well as a transplant policy. Those are both up for renewal. On the stop loss, the fixed cost increase is 8.65%. We did go out to the market to see if currently it's with Sun Life, to see if there were other options available. We came back with a decline, and it was basically due to the experience of, they look at 3 years in arrears. The current year is great. We have not had any piercing of any claims of the stop loss individual deductible, which is 150,000. However, last year we had 4 claims, and the 3-year history, if I look at it, in 3 years, the total paid premium was 1.538 million. The total claims paid out were 2.128 million. So actually, your loss ratio was 138%, which means for every dollar they collected, they paid out $1.38. So that's the basic reason why we do not have any alternatives other than Sun Life currently. That being said, the increase was only 8.65%. We did have a cap on basically that they could not increase the rates over 15%. So that was a good thing. The renewal options, everything is the same. There are no new lasers, and a laser is when they look at the claims that they've incurred over the past 2 or 3 years and say, this individual, we are going to provide coverage for everyone, including at the $150,000 deductible, except for this individual. And if you remember right, a couple of years ago, we had a $1.5 million laser on one individual that's no longer in our claims history. So that's just the basic. They did give us an option of increasing the deductible from 150,000 to 175,000. And I can tell you, so we would be increasing $25,000 risk level per individual that's on the current plan. The monthly premium savings would be $5,717.36. The annual would be a little over $68,608. However, last year, remember I mentioned we had 4 claims. It would take 2.5 claims, and then you would be at a deficit. You would be paying more out in the additional for the deductible than you would be in the savings. It is an option. Clint Eastwood said, do you feel lucky? I don't know if I would want to gamble with that, an unknown, because if we had 4, you're going to pay out $100,000 more in deductible just for those 4, and your savings is going to be $68,000. So, but that is an option. The other thing is the transplant policy, and that's basically no change, just an actual renewal that goes along with it. Now, this is also the time that you can, and I had given all of you that packet on the savings. One of the savings that they had identified is if you created a dental network through UMR. Currently, there's none. So any member can go to any dentist they want, and they're going to process the claims. If you designated the UMR dental network, you would have a 36% cost savings, which is roughly $30-some thousand a year. But if you looked at the list of dentists that your members have used over the past year, less than a third of those would actually be in that network. So it would be a constriction of who your members could go to. So
Yeah, I think that's
convenient,
worth the
30,
risk.
yeah, exactly.
They don't cover
But it is
a
an
lot.
option. It is an option.
6-month cleans out. They don't cover too much.
Anyway, so. Do you have any questions? I mean, there's a lot of claims history that we could go over, without names, but this year has been really, really positive. So I anticipate that unless something catastrophic happens in the next 3 months, because there's always that trail of claims to catch up, we're doing very well.
Yeah, and then we've got 1 more year, and I think that big laser will be off.
Yes.
Everything will be much a little better. So we can stay healthy.
Yes. Well, it's kind of like, I don't know if you read the article that was in the Iowa County Magazine for August, that Crim's placed in there, and has to do with the importance of a safety committee and prevention being of prime importance. And it's just like this, as long as you have a program that, for your employees about wellness and health and all of that, you can't really see upfront and close what the savings are, but over a period of time, you do see that. That's the plug for the safety committee.
Any questions for Dave? Alright. Any of the department heads? Thank you, ma'am. I did send you an email on my phone and I think it didn't go, so I sent it again yesterday.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it.
T-Mobile transfer is not working. Aaron sent us all text messages last week and I got mine at 9:30 2 nights ago. Only took 5 days. Now then, you ever got yours, did you? So it's a good thing T-Mobile bottom out. All right, jail expansion is next up.
We need to,
Oh, yeah, motion for setbacks.
right?
Yeah,
Keep it the same, yeah.
Okay, I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Jail expansion's on here for us to bring to a vote. If we want to put it on the ballot for option A or option B. Don, you want to explain the options to the people here? I did bring the big books, yes, you got yours, if anybody wants to look at them.
So the option A is adding basically 118 beds. Would cover the existing building re-roofing, some new parking lots, as well as support area renovations with the kitchen and security electronics upgrade. This would be a maximum of 284 beds. I meant to say starting out that I think Samuel's group is on board here with us through Teams meetings. So if you have any questions for them, you can ask them also. Option B is the new parking lots, Sallyport kitchen, 150 bed jail addition. Be an overall capacity of 316 beds. Support areas will be redone, like the kitchen, the property room area, as well as just laundry area, storage, possibly medical area, as well as security electronics. The security electronics in the existing roof are, as you know, original, so both are needing to be updated. So the one option A is 37.5 million. Option B is 45 million. So basically option A would be 284 beds, would be addition of 136 beds with the $37.5 million. The projected capacity would get us 2041 to 2046. Option B is 316 beds, 45 million. And we looking at 2045 to 2049 is projected to get us through. You know, the jail administrator and I was discussing this morning how, you know, in this study that was conducted by Samuel's group, you know, they had projected where we'd be at, you know, year 3, year 4, year 5, and on the average population, you know, this morning we had it's about 150 inmates, you know, 45 which were farmed out. You know, that puts us in year 4. You know, that's not an average population, but if you look at it, it puts us in year 4 projected out. So, you know, I guess my thoughts is option B gives us the long-term outlook. That's the one I guess I suggest that we go with.
Jason, about how many people would have in jail waiting to go to prison? Just waiting on the room.
I'm not sure how many we have sentenced to prison as of right now. You have several holds from the halfway house. As far as getting people to prison, recently it's been pretty good about getting them fairly quickly. But just getting the cases resolved and on to that next step, whatever it may be, is kind of where we've been at and what the issue is, I think.
I know I've seen on the supervisor page, a lot of counties are having similar issues, and gonna talk to the state next week up at ISAC about adding prison somewhere, because there's just no room. They don't have no room, and they don't have room. Piles back down, just piles it all at the bottom.
And kind of like Don was saying with these projections, this study was done before the law changes in July 1st. And as the county attorney had previously mentioned, she believes that those numbers are going to spike as far as how many inmates we're going to be holding. And like Don said, we're sitting at 150 inmates today. And according to our projection, that's where we should be in 4 years. That's why we are kind of wanting that option B to get the more bed space, because we're a month in to this new law change and we're seeing spikes in how many inmates we're having. So we don't know exactly what that's going to be in the future. The study showed a 3.5% increase per year. We don't know how accurate that's going to be because of this new law change. Personally, I feel it's going to be increased. I've talked to other county jail administrators that are seeing their numbers go up. I think at the 3-week mark in July, we were up 20 inmates than what we were since prior to that law change. And I think it's just going to continue to rise. That's kind of why we're pushing for that option B to get some more bed space.
You know what, the county attorney, talking with her, she believes that there may be some legislative stuff come about. Obviously, there's no guarantees with that, but that currently you can only hold in the jails a sentenced inmate up to a year in the county jail. She looks at how the DOC may try to adjust that is getting that law changed to where you can hold them up to 2 years. It's just another something to think about. If that was to change to where we can hold them up to 2 years, I think we could see some increase of that sentenced inmates also.
Let me go ahead and ask this, and I don't mean to sound negative, but I'm sounding negative to become positive in the end. If we do the 37.5 million project, the smaller project, option A, that might be easier to go to the public with that, since this is a public vote. Does that, how would you respond to that? Do you have some input, some thoughts on that? And I know the difference between 37 and 45 million is not huge. It's not like option A is half of option B. So it's close, but still any difference, any lower amount is going to be more acceptable to the public vote if we're going to make this happen.
Of course, I think that our concern is we hate to do option A and then get to a point where it's not big enough. You know, it's just the way the projections in the original study were. And then with the policy changes July 1st, our concern is that option A may not be large enough. And I hate for any one of us, if we're still here, to we should have something different, 10 years from now. That's my only concern. 10 years from now, maybe it's not big enough, and just think about it this way. If we were to open today, 50 of those beds are going to be occupied, of the 150 in option B. Of those 150 beds in option B, 15 of those are intake. So now you're down to 135. So we just opened today, we're down to 85 beds that are remaining. Is that right? I don't know if I did my math correctly. Help me out. So 85 beds remaining to get us through the next 25 years.
I think Don's right. I think it's the longevity of how long we're gonna be able to sustain housing our own inmates before we get to a point where maybe it's 10 years down the road, we're having to farm inmates out to other counties again. Talking with the Samuels group, you know, if we do choose option A, if that's what the board decides to go with, we're not gonna be able to add on to get to that option B level of beds if option A is the choice that's made. If that's what we go with, we're not gonna be able to add on in the future. And we're running out of real estate to where we're gonna be able to add beds. We just don't wanna see ourselves back in this boat again in another 10 years. Their projection has us 20 to 25 years with option B. And again, this was done before those July 1 changes. So I don't know exactly how accurate those are gonna be. I feel like, you know, our numbers are they're gonna increase a lot quicker than what we actually projected in the last year.
My concern is like, how are we gonna pay wages for, cause you guys said you're gonna have to double employees, which that's all the wages, benefits, like how are we gonna pay for that? I mean, we're cutting budgets like crazy now. That's my concern. One of them.
Yeah, how much of this burden is gonna be fall upon them by the taxpayer? Look at another 30 employees if you double on the staff. That 45 million or 37 million, that's just the construction.
I can assure you that doubling the amount of staff that I supervise is not at the top of my list of things that I necessarily want to do. But
And I understand that, but we need to look at the entire picture. Like, we're struggling now.
We had some questions given to us by citizens, and one of them was what happened in June of 23 that sustained a 58% deviation from the previous 8 years in the crime rate. First of all and foremost, obviously our cops and deputies are doing their jobs because we're making lots of arrests.
So they're saying, why did it go up in 23? In what
It
year?
went up 58% from the previous 8 years.
Yeah, that's what, in talking with supervisor about that, he was asking the same thing as why was there a jump in? Why are we planning this on the last 2 years, you know, of data? You know, I guess I can't, you know, on average it's gone up 3.5% over the last 10 years. So I don't know why there was an increase. I can't put my finger on it. I mean, I think if we could answer that would be nice, but I can't say what the reason is.
Question was, where are all the inmates coming from? Is it a Tumwa agency, Blacksburg, unincorporated areas? And are those areas sharing the cost of the jail and keeping up with their cost sharing agreements with the jail?
Well, I'd say that, you know, a majority of them are Wapello residents. You know, and I'd say that the cost of operating the jail is by taxpayer money. So whether you live in Eddyville or Blacksburg or agency or rural area of Wapello County or Atumwa, you're paying into property taxes for the county. So I guess they are covered.
But we do have a cost sharing agreement with the city too, correct?
Yes.
That's not for inmates, just for the building.
Correct, yes. You know, to answer, I didn't get my answer completely, out there last meeting, you know, the city pays, a portion of the insurance, property insurance. They pay for the spaces they use as well as the shared space that, they have with us. They also pay into the maintenance fund that we've just done this year. So, I mean, they are paying into it, you know, as to, is it enough? But, you know, I guess it's hard to tell at this point. You know, the one thing we talked about, Jason and I this morning, because we are having some of those inmates that there's being brought in on city charges. Do we need to look at that and, you know, look at charging the city for holding that inmate because we're having to pay to have inmates farmed out? So that's what we've discussed this morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that before, if they should pay a day rate, so.
You know, and I think anything over the initial appearance, once they're, see the judge, if they're not bonding out, they're staying, that's when the charges should be looked at, starting to, charge the city for that. So that's what we're looking at, you know, to try and offset some of this cost. You know, it's just the answer to the employees. I know it's a big one, you know, and it's concerning for me too, because I have to find the 25 or 30 employees, and it's hard to find somebody. But this direction we're headed, I think is going to cost us more money in the long run. We're going to have to hire employees because, as Darren said himself, talking to some of the supervisors, their jail capacity is starting to increase, and we're going to have to start going out further to try and find beds to hold these folks. So that means we're going to potentially have more people on the road. You know, those are the things we need to think about too, is, you know, I agree with you, Carrie. You know, it's going to be a big expense. Hopefully there's some things that change with the state, with properties, tax stuff and things like that. It may not change, and it may be one of those things we figure out something that makes it work, but I don't have the answer as to what that is currently today.
I think Louise sent an email for the new jail, the cost to date for the insurance is like right under 59,000.
So there's two prices, right?
Yeah, at the 30 some and then the 45.
Depending on which option, 45 or 60.
That was insurance on the building. Just the building doesn't
just the
sell it,
building.
yes.
And then there was the construction, which she also asked that, and we have to insure them during construction,
The builder's risk. Mm-hmm.
which is another cost, correct?
In talking with Billy, she says that some of that can be put into the contract bidding process too, to help have that figured out. If I understood that correctly.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm sure they've just changed their bid amount.
To make them isolated so you know exactly what portion they're charging for that, because then you can go out in the market and see if that's, you know, acceptable or not.
Question, Brian?
I'll just comment this way. I have no problem taking this to a public vote. I always like the idea of the citizens deciding together as a group for decisions like this. And I think the citizens have the capacity to weigh in on the issue of the labor cost side of things also as they make that decision. So I don't see any problem taking it to a public vote.
And I can relook at that staffing projection. My main focus is the safety and security of the facility, you know, my staff, you know, making sure they're able to do their job safely with enough people. You know, when you're understaffed, that's when things like workman's comp issues come up as well. So we try to staff it adequately and appropriately. I can relook at it. But those are my main focuses when I look at those staffing issues.
Well, and in talking with Sammy's group, doing the study, they said, what they typically use is, we figure 5 people for each position, you know. Our facility is not even manned currently for that, that number. So, I mean, at times, up until the early morning hours, we have 3 people in there from, 10 to 2, and then we're two staff in there from 2 to 6. So, I mean, we're not even at adequate staffing now for what we need. So, I don't think we didn't inflate those numbers. I don't think we just used what what the kind of the going market is that we Samuel's group was able to provide us. I think.
Well, initially, all the money that we spend on contracting out would come back to cover our labor costs. But that's a plus already. And I think the idea is we can manage the labor with the number of inmates in the system so that you're not just hiring a whole bunch of people, you're hiring it to the size that you need at the time.
Well, in talking with Samuel's group, we figured it's gotta level out at some point, right? Because we can't hold, our population is increasing, so why is our inmate population increasing? Why, and I think part of it's, we have a halfway house here that kind of contributes a little bit to that. It's in talking with them, it's got to level out, but we're at, it's a tough decision we all have here today, and I'm merely giving you my opinion, what I see.
Anybody else like to comment? Chad? On. Sorry, see, I talk about Chad. Chad, he knows how to activate you.
Thank you. So my name is Micah Van Mersbergen. I'm not a county resident, so I appreciate you letting me speak. I live a half-mile north of the county line. So we've got several farms in Wapello. And so I'm coming into this a little bit late, so I apologize. I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence or any of the information that's already been discussed in work sessions and whatnot. But looking at the presentation from the Samuels group just begged a lot more questions in my mind than what it answered. So I was looking at the average daily population. I'm curious on their data and their assumptions that they used. So over the 10-year period that the previous 10 years, they concluded a 5.2% average annual growth in the ADP. But they also stated 57.8% was the total growth for the period. So they divided by 11, not 10. It should be 5.8%. And then they assert that a 3.5% annual growth is likely. So given the national average of 0.96 and the first 8 years of the 10-year period was 1.9%, the last 2 years was 18.5%. So how did we go from, which is why we're here, right? We're not here because of 2022. We're here because of what started in 2023. So if we're going to assume, that projection, 18.5%, we'd be out of beds on the option A, we'd be out of beds in 2029. And with option B, we'd be out of beds in 2030. So I'm curious how they looked at the last 2 years of 18.5% growth and then just assumed that we dropped down to 3.5% to get us out into the 2040s. The other question that I think is the presentation just doesn't answer is the full cost analysis. The construction cost is one thing, but then, should we just double that for all the other associated costs, maintenance, personnel, and whatnot? I think that question needs to be answered adequately before taking it to the public. And then the last question is, I'm not familiar with all the 2080s that might be in place, but it seems like there should be a proportional amount of cost sharing between the entities specifically whose residents are occupying these beds. you know, I'm pretty confident that from where, you know, I'm paying taxes probably isn't contributing much of the population here. And with that, if 2080s could be put in place, you know, the city could do its own bond as well to pay their fair share. Any of the cities, I mean, depending on what the demographic breakdown actually ends up being. So those are just questions I had, comments that I had, food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis, well, wait, I just have a quick question about, the last time we had a bond referendum for, oh, excuse me, Dennis Wilhoit. The last time, we had this bond referendum for the current facility, there was a projection of how much money was gonna be made from farming out inmates. Do we know how much the current jail produced in revenue in terms of farming out inmates during its lifespan? To make a comparison to this promise that we'll be now housing and taking others, you know, adjusted for inflation, if we can make some kind of prediction that way.
So you're asking Dennis how much we brought in
revenue we
revenue?
made off of previous years. I know when it first opened, you had some Des inmates, but I don't know how long it lasted.
Yeah, I don't have that number as to what we brought in.
I think that with the promise that with that all of a sudden we're gonna start making money, that was our promise the last
I
time.
don't think I promised anything. I just said that we would have to do that. You know, I said, I'm not promising you. And that's what the point in talking with the three of you I've made is I don't want, you know, people are talking about, well, they said we were gonna make money off it before. We did have revenue.
And I'm just simply asking that figure.
Yeah, I don't know what the figure is.
I think that would be a helpful figure to have.
I'll see if I can find that.
Yeah, and I don't know that we ever made any revenue off this either, because all the ones we released on our own would actually have to stay or bond out, so we'd actually probably fill that quicker. Any other comments? Mayor? So we make a decision, you want to put option A or option B or either one up for public vote. Me, personally, in my opinion, I can't push for tax dollars. I just don't know where we're gonna get them. With a 2% increase, I just don't know how we can put this on the public. But I know we need to do something. That's why I want to get on the state next week and see if they build a prison and not rush this to a vote. You know, we'll push for timeline. That's the problem. If we had another month. That's my opinion.
We can't have a special election.
Correct. No, and we would have to wait 2 years to be on the ballot again. And we all know
That's 2
in
years,
2
you
years,
mean like
prices would go up again.
2 voting years, you know, not.
What's that?
Well, you said it couldn't be on the ballot for 2 years, but he's talking about 2 years. You know, one in November, then the next year. You couldn't do nothing until next year.
Yeah, I think the attorney told us November 27th will be the next time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Public vote was 60%
60%.
of the total number of ballots cast.
In my opinion, that putting it on this ballot keeps it in front of the public as an issue. And so there's some value just in doing that step. And yeah, it might not pass, but if it doesn't, we've learned something in the process, and then we go to the next year with better information than we have now. Because I tend to agree I would have liked to have this report about 6 months ago or 3 months ago, and it kind of seemed like it all pile up here right at the end when we have the deadline of the election. But,
we also have that additional cost if we want them to promote it, 36,000.
which my attitude towards that was perhaps we could go back to them and say, what can you accomplish for like 10,000 or 15,000? Because I do have a little bit of an issue spending that much money on the promotion side of it.
You know, put it on me.
Well, it's not on you, we've expressed our opinion, so.
I do not have an issue myself putting it on the ballot, let the taxpayers decide. But again, I'm very concerned of how we're going to pay wages, benefits, we know we're capped at 2%. That's my thought.
So, you two want it on a ballot, you have to decide option A or option B.
Does having it on a ballot and it failing put any time restrictions on when it can be brought up again?
No,
No.
no, I think of,
I think you can put it right back on again, the 2 years later, so. I like that. We talked about that with the EMS levy when they were pushing that, so.
Could Darren, I really respect your opinion on this because this is your area, so I appreciate that. Would you, I'd like this decision to be unanimous, but it doesn't have to be two of us to make a decision. Could you share a little more on your thoughts? You did, but I mean, would you be willing to make this unanimous, or do you?
I've always been, I want the public to speak. It's
That's good. Yeah,
it's
like
their
that.
count.
Mhm.
But being in law enforcement, I know what's happening to us here isn't our fault. We're doing our job.
And I agree.
Our guys are making their ass. We're putting them in court. There's no consequence for a crime. Murders are getting out in years, and it's supposed to be life. The state is full, and without consequences, no room to go up. It's like having an ice cream cone with no ice cream at the top of your cone.
Mhm.
We've got nowhere. There's nothing at the top. We got nowhere to go. So no matter what we do, and this, like Don said, now they're wanting to hold them for 2 years because there's nowhere to go. So where do we go? What happens in 2 years? Will it ever open up? You know, like we spoke before, this isn't something that would be built now. It's be 3-4 years down the road before it's even open for business. But the same way with the state, if they build a new prison. I've talked before that maybe we need to look at options like Florida and these other states that have dumped probation and parole. And guys just go to prison for their full term. If they get 15 years, they do 15 years. And then when they're out, they're just done. I would say the state a lot of money on wages on that.
And when it gets right down to it, I'd rather fix the problem, which I think there's several ways to do that, but none of those are going to be
Legal.
That out loud. None of those ways are going to be short-term solutions. And so I'm thinking offering this to the public is at least a way to keep it in front of everybody's attention for the short term. So I think that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and I know where he's coming from. And when they pitched the jail the last time, we was going to make money. And we did it first.
Yeah,
but it didn't take long. The crime rate caught up, and we filled up. So
exactly.
And one of the quotes was, we're first in crime rate for the last 4 years. Yep, we are by FBI standards. But what people don't take into consideration is repeat offenders count as another arrest. And so when they repeat, I know Fuller can testify to this, we've arrested people and they might be arrested 3, 4, 5, 6 times waiting on the first court. because our court's full. So then that, now instead of a one-time offender, he's a six-time offender, so our stats go up. And, one of our projects we're working on is adding a courtroom to the courthouse. Now the state's short judges, so I don't know how that was even gonna help us to add a courtroom with no judges. We're just losing the county attorney to be a judge, but that still doesn't catch us up, so. And I think she's not even gonna be here. And she told me she's gonna be in Wapello County for the first 6 months, then be transferred somewhere else, so. So I don't know the answer, but the answer's gotta come from somewhere above us, because they're killing us.
Well, and I think-
Revisit with someone.
Yeah, I mean, if they're gonna be if Atoma's gonna have city charges and nobody else in the county has their own charges, everybody goes by state charges. Then if we're gonna house them in the jail, then maybe we should have to pay a fee to house them in the jail. It doesn't have to be $65, but it should be some rate if the county's benefiting from charging by the city.
Well, I guess I would say if we're paying $65 for somebody to be somewhere else, then they can pay $65 for the cost of the city charges, is how we look at it.
But do you have a,
Right, because we get 9% of all fines by state charges, right? Is it 9%?
Yes.
So we get 0 from state charges. So we get no income from state charges.
I looked into that and talked to the chief about what their revenue is that they bring in, and it was like, I think he said it was around 80,000. So if you did 9%, I mean, $7,200. I mean,
Yeah, it's
not
great,
much.
but at least it's putting something somewhere else. So. But I think $65 a day would benefit us more than the 9%. So.
Well, and I think you're going to have it's going to be
because
a tough conversation, because I'm sure they're running into the same boat as the county is.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But
And on top of that, you have prescriptions, you have medical expenses that the county has to pay for.
Yep.
Once again, my personal opinion, if we make a motion, I think we need to leave the promotion fee out of it until we can talk it over some more Samuels.
I would agree with that.
You can meet, that's it at next Wednesday's meeting.
It's for me. Yeah. Oh man.
I think that wouldn't that amount up to that dollar amount,
Jace Cohen.
Yeah, he's on there.
Jace, was that a set fee or is that a top fee?
This is Samuels. That was an up to not to exceed fee because there's costs to print material. It's more than just pay. You're not just paying the Samuels group. We're paying for copy. We're paying for things outside of just our staff.
I think the one thing to point out that they bring to the table there is that the portion where property owner can go online and see how it's going to affect their property. What the estimated tax is going to be.
Yeah.
So I think
and not to throw water on the fire, but the problem with that is only the cost of the building, not the total cost. And that's where the gentleman was talking before, want to see the total estimated. And I understand where he's coming from, so. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Let me mention this. I think we have that deadline for the putting it on the ballot is the 26th. We're going to meet the 25th. Does that give them enough time to put it on the ballot? That's maybe a question for
I think we need to do
this
that
today.
today.
Okay. And I agree, you know, like.
The cost,
Yeah.
the cost is something we can deal with later.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be till to the other.
Correct.
Something like that.
I think to the 26th,
$26.
yeah, so what? If you were to pick one of the options and move forward, I'd reach out to the attorney and they would draw up the resolution and language stuff for the ballot. And then I'd bring the resolution would be on there on the 25th for to vote on, put it on the ballot. And then also there'd be some, Allerson County would have a service agreement will also that would be placed on there with that resolution as to their cost.
Yeah, we don't know what that is yet, correct?
Correct, I do not.
Before we make a motion, can I ask about, option A or option B? I guess I'm thinking option B at this point. All ballot. Any other thoughts on that?
I would choose option B as well.
Option B is fine.
So, all that in mind, I would entertain a motion to proceed with option B. And I think I have expressed my reservations, but I think it's the wisest thing to do is to keep this subject in front of the public. So that's the motion.
I'm gonna second that motion.
Comment we made before, this is the public. So bring them out, hopefully that vote yes or no on how they feel, because mostly there's no doubt taxes will raise on the cost of the building and expenses. So we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? And B will get the daughter to get drawn up, put on the ballot for November. Ballot approval for bill administrator. This, I don't know,
I'll make a motion to approve the salary for the jail administrator.
I'm gonna second that.
those in favor?
Aye.
Why I checking on that. April or May. Whenever we do amendments, we just have to do an amendment for that amount to those salaries according to the auditor. Buffalo County Attorney. Oh, I thought you guys did both. Yeah. Okay,
So I'll make a motion to approve the assistant jail administrator new salary.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 2,200. And Buffalo County Attorney. Sheila Bird. Stevie's put her or him at the same pay as the other assistant attorney, since losing Elizabeth.
Gonna make a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
That was an increase of 3,600, and that was already in this salary. And then making a salary adjustment to office manager. Carry short. An increase of 5,000 also coming from Elizabeth's salary departure.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
So has money left over and it'll stay there for the carry over. Right, the adopting house center. We have a new administrator, Jenna Stiles. She will become a full-time employee at $22.50 an hour.
I'm make motion to approve.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
And she'll have an assistant at 2038 part-time.
Could you check the hours, is 32 hours is full time.
Yeah, they circle part-time on here.
I know, but.
But we have the board
Whenever
meeting.
She will be full time with benefits. That's why I asked. I thought you were gonna check on.
I was, but then she had part-time circled on here, so I didn't worry about it, so. But we have a meeting on Thursday, so
Okay.
if you, so it'd be the, I'm approving what they turn in at part-time. It's non-exempt.
That'd be up to 29 hours. Is that
Correct. Yeah,
Yes.
up to 20 hours.
Yeah.
30 and below is part-time.
Yes, but I think in my minutes that she is supposed to work according to their board 32 hours. So she will not be considered part-time.
Yeah, she won't be able to work 32 hours.
Can we make our motion to be 29 or 30 less, 30 or less? That way, their board can resolve it from there.
Yeah, so I would agree that to circle part-time on here would be 30 hours or less. Motion to approve part-time hire at 30 hours or less.
Yes, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Deputy Auditor, Neva, Don Rickle, become what,
Deputy auditor.
she did a check, I think. That'd be right.
She's already deputy, but she's requested the job position as deputy auditor.
Yeah, so I mean, that's like the chief deputy, so we basically be taking Danielle's spot.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
Now, second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Danielle got moved up to auditor. Treasurer investment report. Treasurer's department.
Move to accept the report as provided.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any other business? Appreciate everybody's attendance and input. Chad, I need to see you at.
Okay. Thanks for your input, Aaron, and visiting about all this. Topics that we do. Now, thank you.
Appreciate everybody's putting forth the effort here, so it's a good deal. So, like I say, anybody wants to see these books, I'm glad to let you use them. So, anybody probably wants. All right, I'm gonna have to call for a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
That's online.